Recording in progress.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaha Shri Kanto Mathulo Yasya Janani Sarvamangala Janaka Shankaro Devaha Tam Vande Kunjarananam Yonta Pravishya Mama Vachamimam Prasuptam Sanjeevayatyakila Shakti Dharaswadhamna Anyanscha Hastacharana Shravanatvagadin Pranan Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Panghum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutastunvanti Divyaisthavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopaniషadair Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudamarutastunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopaniషadair Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyantam na vidussura suraganaha devaya tasmai namaha. Shri Haraye namaha. Namaste to all of you. We are in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, where the Pratama Shatka, as they call it, the first 6 chapters deal with a certain idea, and then there is a slow transition to a much more of a different subject matter in the next 6 chapters, and then the last 6 acts more like summing up most of the ideas, and then the 18th is a complete summary of all the ideas in Bhagavad Gita. That is the general layout of the Bhagavad Gita. So the commentators who have commented on Bhagavad Gita have generally looked up as first 6 chapters as a unit, and the second as another unit, and the third 6 as another unit. So Pratama Shatka, Dvitiya Shatka, and the Tritiya Shatka. Pratama Shatka primarily deals with karma and the attitude with which we have to perform karma. And the next 2 are slightly different. As we go, we'll see it. Bhagavan, now having answered most of Arjuna's question, is starting a new topic here. The seed for that topic has already been laid down by Bhagavan earlier in the previous chapter itself. When he was talking in chapter 5, almost at the end of chapter 5, he suddenly talks about how to do dhyana. Okay. When I roll through this will go back to Prathamodhyaya. Atitanantaradhyaya ante, in the previous chapter's end, dhyana yogasya samyak darshanam prati antarangasya sutrabhutaha shlokaha sparshan kritva bahir bahyan ityadayaha upadishtaha tesham vrittistaniyaha ayam shashtodhyayaha arabhyate. This is Shankaracharya's introduction to the 6th chapter. He says, Atitara Anantara Adhyaye. In the previous chapter, Dhyana Yogasya. For performing Dhyana Yoga, Samyak Darshanam Prati Antarangasya Sutra Bhutaha Shlokaha. Samyak Darshanasya Antarangasya Sadhanam Dhyana Yoga. So, there is a Bahiranga sadhana and an Antaranga sadhana. Karma yoga is a Bahiranga sadhana and Dhyana yoga is an Antaranga sadhana. That is how Shankaracharya looks at it and says, because there needs to be a connectivity when Bhagavan teaches, and there needs to be a coherent arrangement of ideas. So when Bhagavan initially talks about a lot about karma, those are all external things that would help a person. And then after the mind is a little bit quiet, what to do with that mind? That is when dhyana comes into play. And Bhagavan seems to have laid the seed of it in the previous adhyaya itself when he said Sparshan Kritva Bahirbahyan in the previous one. So he quotes the idea and says, hey, this is what Bhagavan is going to teach now. Tesham Vritthistaniyaha Ayam Sashtodhyayaha Arabhyate. Just to expound that idea, to explain it in detail, this adhyaya is put forward by Bhagavan. This is the content matter of the adhyaya. Interestingly, this adhyaya is generally called Atma Samyama Yoga. Iti Shri Krishnarjuna Samvade Atma Samyama Yogo Nama Shashtodhyayaha. This is how old Bhagavad Gita textbooks will put forward this adhyaya. This adhyaya is also called as Dhyana Yoga. The word Atma both of them actually point to the same concept. So, samyamam means to restrain. To restrain. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and so on, or the steps in yoga. And samyama, samyak, very well restraining something is called samyama. And when to restrain, to regulate, to discipline, or master is samyama. And the intent is self-mastery. So this chapter is called Atma Samyama. So what is the self here? It is not the Nirguna Nirakara Atma, but generally the word Atma points to different things at different contexts. We have seen this. Here Atma means Sharira, Mano, Buddhi. So our body, mind, intellect we need to be the master of that. Our senses shouldn't draw us to all kinds of things. Our mind shouldn't waver all over. Our intellect needs to be clear and so on. So what is the process by which you gain self-mastery? Atma Samyamam Yena, that is Atma Samyama Yoga. By which Atma Samyama is attained, that is Atma Samyama Yoga. So, the process that is described in this chapter is meditation, dhyana. Samam Kaya Shirogrivam, etc. will be given. What are the physical things you need to do to be able to control the mind? What are all the other things you need to do, and so on. So, the central theme of this chapter is meditation, and with that, not just with meditation, the other things that are needed like physical discipline, dietary disciplines, physical exercises, all of it is the content matter of this adhyaya, which makes it very interesting. So, but the pivotal idea is dhyana. So, one other name for this adhyaya is Dhyana Yoga. Atma Samyama is the condition for dhyana. That is how they are connected. Without self-mastery, dhyana is impossible. So, Atma Samyama is the condition for dhyana, and Atmanyeva Vasham Nayet is how Bhagavan puts it. So, that pada or phrase is there in the chapter. That is the reason why they have given that name. Tatastato Niyamya, restraining it. And Arjuna is going to ask, the mind is impossible for me to control. So, how am I going to control, and so on. Shankaracharya, so we saw why this chapter is called Atma Samyama Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. We saw how it is connected with the previous chapter, because the seed idea for this has already been laid by Bhagavan, and the central theme of this is Dhyana, and the intent of Dhyana is Atma Samyama. So this far we have seen, and Shankaracharya goes about putting some more ideas and explaining them in this chapter. He puts a lot of argument and defends them and so on. Not all of it will be very relevant at this point, so I am glossing over some of this, but I will point some main ideas that he is putting forward. Bhagavan discusses karma yoga first in this chapter. Even though the chapter is given as Atma Samyama Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, Bhagavan is going to start by saying Anashritah karma palang karyam karma karoti yaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha niragnir na cha akriyaha, and so on. So it is a description of karma yoga. So first one point that Shankaracharya makes is that, hey, karma yoga is a bahiranga sadhana that is needed for Atma Samyama. So without karma yoga, it is impossible to attain any level of self-mastery. So it becomes an integral part of the overall prescription given by Krishna. So one thing that you will repeatedly see in all these commentators is that they do not take these things or karma yoga or bhakti yoga or jnana yoga as different paths or anything like that. They see a single package saying that, hey, you need to work on disciplining your physical body, you need to work on disciplining what actions you do, you need to work on disciplining the attitude in which we do the action, and so on. So this is a complete package given by them rather than different paths for different individuals with different mentalities. Actually, I saw Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Jnaneshwara of Marathi one, or Madhusudana Saraswati, Sridhara Swami, Baladeva Vidyabhushana, all of these traditional commentators, nobody had taken that kind of a approach towards us. Neither Swami Vivekananda had such an approach. It is just that he wrote a lot about these things in different ways, and sometimes it is misleading to look at them as different paths. But the point that we bring up here is that Karma Yoga is an integral part. You cannot skip Karma Yoga. One thing needs to be said when we say these things is that this journey is a several lifetime long journey. So, nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgadim tata gacchati. Arjuna is going to ask a question saying that, what if I start climbing up and then I am like at 300-400 steps and my life is over? Should I start from step number 1? For which Krishna says, no. Once you have done a certain amount of work, your Sukshma Sharira carries that. You will be able to make progress from there on. Krishna guarantees that you will be provided an environment where Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashtopi Jayate. Whatever you have carried, your investments that you have done, not the monetary investments, but the spiritual investments that you have done, you will be able to carry them with you. So sometimes somebody could skip something because they have already worked on it in previous lifetimes and so on. So we do acknowledge that. So having said that, the beginning portion of this chapter of around 10 verses are dedicated to Karma Yoga. In fact, Krishna says, Yata Deepo Nivasasto Nirango Sopama Smrita Yogino Yatachittasya Yujjato Yogamatmanaha. Like a lamp in a windless place does not flicker, such is the mind of the yogi who is absorbed in meditation. And that Atma Samyama, that Dhyana comes only through Karma Yoga. So, Atma Samyamaha Dhyanasya Adharaha, Dhyanam Samyak Darshanasya Adharam, Karma Yogaha Atma Samyamasya Adharam. So, there is a progressive step wise concept exposition by Krishna. So first he talks about how Karma Yoga is going to help you regulate your lifestyle, your body, your mind, your intellect, With that, how you will be able to get into a state of meditation, and in that state of meditation, how your mind becomes pure and your intellect becomes pure. At that point of time, how your wrong associations with just the body or the mind slowly goes away, and that gives rise to samyak darshana, or the ability to see things as it is. So that seems to be the path that Bhagavan gives as a prescription in this adhyaya. So as we saw, the seed for this was already laid down by Krishna in the previous one. Because one of the beauties that you see in the literature that deal with most of the Vedantic concepts is that this literature, even from Shruti, which is the Vedas, the literature is laid down as a conversation between two people. Bhrugurvai varunihi varunam pitaramupasasara adhihi bhagavo brahmeti. Bhrigu approaches Varuna and asks, are Bhrigu and Varuna real characters? That is not the intent of Veda actually. Many people start analyzing these things. Actually, Veda says don't analyze this. I am presenting you the concept as a conversation between two people. So yeah, there is who is historical Varuna, who was historical Bhrigu. No. That is not our that is not the analysis you need to take with that text, because Nachiketas and Yama talk to each other, and that becomes Kathopanishad. Bhrigu and Varuna talks to each other, that becomes Taittiriya Upanishad. Same things, the same way all the Upanishads are presented, Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So there is always a samvada, a conversation. The reason is the potential doubts that could arise in the mind of a seeker can be verbalized and is presented as a dialogue when two people are talking. When you give it as a sermon, sometimes it is impossible to grasp for the mind. So they have given this as a dialogue, and Bhagavad Gita also follows the same pattern that Shruti follows, which is Upanishad follows. That is the reason why it is in the form of a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. So Arjuna realizes that Krishna has the knowledge and will be able to help, and he slowly all the doubts that arise in his mind are being asked by him and answered by Krishna. So this Samvada Rupa iti Shri Mad Bhagavad Gita su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Dhyana Yogo Nama Sashtodhyayaha. This is how we conclude every chapter. So this Samvada pattern of presenting an idea is unique to the Upanishads, and it is followed by Bhagavad Gita. So of course, the same thing is done in different parts of Mahabharata, because any instance that Vyasa gets to work on this, he does. Between Dhritarashtra and Sanat Kumara, Sanat Sujatiyam is given, and so on. So a conversational way of presenting the idea is unique, and this chapter does not start with a question like how the previous one started. That is the reason why a commentator had to justify this chapter by saying that the idea was laid down previously. So that is one point that Shankaracharya makes. The second point that Shankaracharya makes is that Karma Yoga is the external preparation for Dhyana Yoga. Karma Yoga is the Bahiranga Sadhana for Dhyana Yoga. Tatra Dhyana Yogasya Bhagirangam Sadhanam Karma comes in the Bhashyam actually. He says for the Dhyana Yoga, Bahiranga Karma, Bahiranga Sadhana is Karma. That's the second idea. The third point that Shankaracharya makes in his Bhashyam is that I already mentioned, there are not too many classifications of people and different paths that are laid down. The reason why that is taken up for discussion in the introduction is that Bhagavan is going to talk about Arurukshu and Arudha. Arurukshu is somebody who is in the process of climbing up, and Arudha is somebody who has already attained a certain stage. And the argument comes as to, are these two different people, or is this the same person who has gone through two different stages? For that, Shankaracharya says, no, it is not two different people. These are all, this is for by the same person who has done the first preliminary round of sadhanas, and then he is ready for the next one. So Arurukshu and Arudha are not two different kind of people, rather they are the one and the same person who has gone through two different sets of sadhanas. So his point is, once you perfect karma yoga, you become eligible for karma sannyasa. So this is something that most of the traditional commentators are very, very careful. They do not prescribe giving up karma for a person without steadfastness in karma yoga. So that is the reason why even in the Shastra, say you read Valmiki Ramayana or Mahabharata, you see so many Kshatriyas, valorous people. You see so many Vaishyas who are so proficient in dealing with the state economy. You see so many people with so much of skills that are there. You see so many people learning Vedic these things and so on. But you hardly see a sannyasi. All of these people will be either grihasthas or brahmachari and then a grihastha. Very rarely you will see a sannyasi. In this whole epic of Mahabharata, very rarely you will see a sannyasi. So the reason is that the majority of the public, the prescription that is given to them is that follow karma yoga. Do not give up karma. And even if you have the ability to give up karma, rather do karma as an offering to Ishvara and as a service to the society. Even at that point of time, even after you have become a jnani, you don't give up karma, because the world will benefit because of you. But there is a stage of some of these perfect individuals that karma automatically falls away from them. That is a different stage. That is the stage that Ramana Bhagavan was there. In the sense, he did not voluntarily give up anything. Karma just gave him up. So that is a different stage. The general prescription that it is laid down for anybody, even after enlightenment, is be like Swami Vivekananda, work for the society. So that is the emphasis there, and Shankaracharya takes that emphasis here. And he says, Krishna calls karma yoga itself a sannyasa. So that is what we are going to see in the first verse. So Shankaracharya says it is a praise that he gives for karma yoga. That does not mean that the ashrama of sannyasa need not be taken or anything like that. On the renouncing the attachments or fruits while conducting an act in itself equates to sannyasa, because that gives you so much of chitta prasada. It gives you so much of tranquility while being in action. So he argues that formal sannyasa is still required, and required in the sense it happens to some people and so on, because karma itself gives away from that person. So the central message that is given in the introductory part of this adhyaya is that phalanirapeksha karma, selfless action, and that leads to sattva shuddhi or purification of the mind, and that gives dhyana yoga arohana samarthyam, to be able to get to the level where if you sit, your mind automatically resolves. It becomes it gets to a state of meditation, which will not come without working, is the idea there. And then shama, with that karma sannyasa occurs, and with dhyana yoga you get to samyak darshana. So phalanirapeksha karma leads to sattva shuddhi, that leads to dhyana yoga arohana samarthyam, that gives shamadhi shatka sampattihi, that gives karma sannyasa, and that leads to dridata, or it makes a sustained meditation possible, which leads to self-knowledge. That seems to be the path that is laid down. So, and the beauty is, the adhyaya ends with devotion. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana. Very beautifully leading to the next 6 adhyayas dealing with Bhakti Pradhana Shatka again. So, this is the general map of the Dhyana Yoga or Atma Samyama Yoga. So, with that, let's read. Sita Aunty, can you read with me? Or Gayatri Ji, can you read?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I can read.
Okay.
Gayatri can read. I can read the next one.
Okay. No, Auntie, you read. Now that
Okay.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Auntie, unmute yourself, please.
Okay.
Shri
Okay.
Bhagavan Uvacha.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha
Anashritah karma phalam.
Anasritah karma phalam
Karyam karma karoti yaha.
Karyam karma karoti yaha
Sasanyasi cha yogi cha.
Sasannyasi cha yogi cha
Na niragnir na chakriyaha.
Na niragni na chakriyaha.
Yeah, let's read together.
Yes.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashritah karma phalam Karyam karma karoti yaha Sasanyasi cha yogi cha Na niragnirna chakriyaha. So Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So Bhagavan started talking again. So what does he say? So I took up an English version here, which is much easier to follow. We'll look at the Bhashyam when needed, but I will make this font better next time. But if you're on a computer, that might be easier. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bhagavan Uvacha means he spoke. And we have seen Arjuna Uvacha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Shri Bhagavan said, what did he say? Saha yaha karoti. He who performs. Karyam karma. Actions to be done. Karyam karma. That which is a prescribed action. Karyam karma anashritaha. Without expectation of karma phalam. Anashritaha. Saha. That person is a sannyasi. He is a sannyasi. 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 He is somebody who has really given up things. Sannyasi. Cha. Yogi cha. He is also a yogi. And he says, na. Not who. Niragnihi. Not the one who has given up rituals. Nacha akriyaha. Who has renounced action. So what he says that he who performs actions to be done without expecting the results of the action is a real sannyasi and not a renouncer of action, renounce of rituals. He is also a yogi and he is not a renouncer of action. So let us look at Yaha, he who, karma phalam, the fruit of action, anashritaha, is not leaned on. Karyam karma. Ashrayam means to lean on. Ashraya. Bhagavaneva mama ashraya. I lean on Ishvara. Anashritaha. You're not leaning on anything. Anashritaha. Karyam karma. Prescribed activity. Karyam karma means vihita karma. Karyam karma karoti. He does. Saha. That person is praised as sannyasi. He is said as sannyasi, and he is also praised as a yogi. Niragnihi, not niragnihi, sannyasi yogi cha na. So not the, if you not by simply giving up rituals you become sannyasi, not by simply giving up actions you become a sannyasi. Rather, you become a sannyasi by not leaning on the fruits of the action that you perform, that are ordained, or the actions that are prescribed. That is the gentle meaning of this verse. Anashritah karma palang karyam karma karoti yaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha. So karma phalam, karmanam phalam iti karma phalam. Sannyasin, sannyas, to lay aside, to renounce, to give up. Sannyasi, yogi, yuj is the dhatu. These are all very common words that we use. Niragni means who has no fire. Niragnihi. So what upasarga to use to negate something depends on the grammatical rule. Without an agni, you have to say niragnihi. Nihi agnihi, actually. So he has pointed out. Nihi agnihi, niragnihi. For the word kriya, you cannot say nirkriya. You have to say akriya. So to negate kriya, you have to say akriya. So what to use to negate depends on the root word. Agni, niragnihi, kriya, akriya. So this is the general meaning of it. So let us look at the Bhashyam. This is where Shankaracharya makes some observations. So, Anashritaha, na ashritaha, anashritaha. He who is not leaning on something is anashritaha. Kim, why? Karma phalam, karmanam phalam, karma phalam yat tad anashritaha. What is that he is not leaning on? He is not leaning on karma phalam, karmanam phalam. The fruit that you get by the action, he is not leaning on that. Sorry about that. Anashritah karma phalam, karyam karma karoti. Karma phalat. So he explains this as in a very beautiful term. Look at this phrase by Shankaracharya. Karma phala trishna rahitaha ityarthaha. Trishna means the longing, something that pulls you. He does not have that force in his mind. He is acting with a lot of ease. That trishna is not there. Opposite of trishna is Krishna. So that trishna is not there in him. Anashritah karma palam karyam karma karoti. So the idea is that the motivating factor for action or karma is dharma and not karma phalam. So you have to have a motivation. Without motivation, it is impossible to act. But the motivating factor there is what he says is that, hey, it is dharma that motivates this person, not karma phalam. He is propelled by dharma to act. Not for the longing of the result. See, he becomes karma phale trishna virahitaha anashritah karma phalam. Yehi karma phale trishnavan saha karma phalam anashrito bhavati. Yo hi karma phale trishnavan saha karma phalam ashrito bhavati. If you have that longing for that karma phala trishna, you become a karma phala ashrita. Ayantu tad viparitaha. This person is the opposite of that. That is the reason why he called ataha anashrita karma phalam. So he is somebody who is not dependent on the result of the action to choose the right action. He is doing it because that is the right thing to do. Evam bhutaha sanne karyam kartavyam nityam kamyam viparitam agnihotraadikam karma karoti nirvartayati yaha kaschit idrishaha karmi saha sa kamyantarebhyo visishyate it evam arthamaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha iti. So popularly you equate somebody as a sannyasi if he has orange robes. If you look at who is a yogi, the mental picture that you would get is somebody who has a lot of matted hairs and putting big malas or anything like that. Here Bhagavan says those are not the signs of a sannyasi or a yogi. Rather, a real sannyasi is somebody who is able to do the right thing without expecting anything out of it. If you do that, at that moment you become a sannyasi, you become a yogi. So that is so not by giving up. That is what was the message of Shankaracharya as well. So not by giving up karma. And he says sanyasaha parityagaha sa yasyasti sa sanyasi cha. That is, so he has given up something. Tyaga is the tyagam sanyasa lakshanam. This is the definition of sannyasa. So tyagam sanyasa lakshanam. With only by tyaga you become a sannyasi. What did he give up? Shankaracharya says sanyasaha parityagaha sa yasya asti sa sannyasi cha yogi sa sannyasi cha. He has given up karma phala trishna. Because he has karma phala trishna, he has gotten chitta prasada, this steadfastness in his mind. He enjoys a certain tranquility in his mind. That is the reason why he is called as a yogi. Yogi cha, yogaha, chitta samadhanam sa yasya asti sa yogi cha iti evam gunasampannaha ayam mantavya. So this is a gauna comparison. This is not a physical comparison. So, for instance, if you say Devadattaha Simhaha, Devadatta is a lion. Does that mean that he has 4 legs, big manes, and he is going to roar? No. It's just that he has a certain characteristic, the shauryam of a lion, the valor of a lion. So you call that person as a lion. So like that, a karma yogi is called as a sannyasi with the same level of comparison. Because Shankaracharya says, Yevam guna sampannaha. This is a gauna comparison. So that is the reason why he is called as a ayam mantavyaha, na kevalam niragnihi. So many people think that just by giving up, so some things did not work out, so immediately go to Rishikesh and become a sadhu. You can become when somebody asked Ramana Bhagwan, should I take up sannyasa? He said, why? And he said, now you think that you are not a sannyasi. Later you are going to think that you are a sannyasi. Nothing changes. So, not the level of ajnana you have is not going to go away by giving up. Na kevalam niragnihi akriya eva sannyasi yogi cha iti mantavyaha. Don't just think that people with orange robes and big matted hair are the ones with are called as sannyasi and yogi. Nirgata agnayaha karmanga bhutaha yasmat saniragnihi. So one of the duties of a person writing bhashyam is that he has to explain every term. So niragni, without agni, what does it mean? So what it means is that generally a grihastha needs to maintain agni as a part of his ritual. So in the Vedic lifestyle, you maintain Agni. There is Agni in I'll explain it later. But Niragni means the one who has given up Agni. Basically, he has given up all Vedic karma. Nirgata Agnayaha, because there are three Agnis. Agnayaha, Karmanga Bhutaha. They are related to karma. Yasmat Saniragni. Akriyascha. Kriya means all the activities that are related to that. Agni sadhana api avidyamanaha kriyaha tapo dhanadikaha yasyasau akriyaha. So he says, so there is tapas, there is dhyana, there is shaucham, there is snanam, there is so many things that go along with upasana or a Vedic lifestyle. So he has not just by giving up these things you can become a sadhu, rather by performing the activity that you need to perform, and by not having a longing for the result, and by enjoying a certain amount of tranquility in the mind by doing the right thing, you are equivalent to a sannyasi or a yogi. So we have seen the same thing in so many ways. So that is what Bhashyakara also emphasizes. So one point that Shankaracharya wants to bring up is that we'll see that and then we'll go further. Nanuja niragnehe akriyasyaiva shruti smriti yogashastreshu sannyasitvam yogitvam cha prasiddham. Katam iha sagnehe akriyasya cha sannyasitvam yogitvam cha aprasiddhamuchyate iti naisha doshaha kadajit gunavritya ubhayasya sampipadayishitvat tat katham karma pala sankalpa sannyasam sannyasitvam yogangatvena cha karmanushthanat karma phala sankalpasya cha chitta vikshepa hetoho parityagat yogitvam cha iti gaunam ubhayam. Now the next is related to the next adhyaya. Okay. So I think when I read this, you would have got the idea as to what he says, because we have seen this. So just because by giving up you do not, how so? Nanucha niragnehe akriyasyaiva shruti smriti yogashastreshu sannyasitvam yogitvam cha prasiddham. When you say a sannyasi, all over Shruti Smriti Purana, everywhere you see certain physical characteristics, and one of the things is that he has given up Agni Upasana, and he has become a yogi. So katam iha sagnehe. How can you say somebody who is still doing karma, sakriyasya, who is doing a lot of activity, as a yogi, as a sannyasi? For that, earlier we saw it is a gunavritti. It is like, that is the reason why we saw Devadattaha Simhaha is an example that I gave. So that guna is compared. So he says, naisha na yesha doshaha. There is no defect in calling a karma yogi as a sannyasi. So and he says, what did he give up? Karma pala sankalpasya cha chitta vikshepa hetoho parityagat. This karma pala sankalpa creates chitta vikshepa, agitatedness in the mind, and because that agitation is not there, he is parityagat, he enjoys chitta prasada, and that state of prasada is explained as yogitvam here by Bhagavad. So na niragnihi. So I said I'll explain what Agni. Generally, a person who maintains Ahavaniya, Garhapatya and Dakshinagni. There are three Agnis that are ritual that are related to Agnihotra. And in fact, there is a Shruti Machana. Yavajjivam Agnihotram Kuryat. May you do Agnihotra as long as you are alive. This is an command by Shruti. But again, that is only till you have attained a certain state. After that, you do give up. And in Tilanjuho Misarasagum Sapishtan Gandharama Chitte Ramantu Swaha. These are all the sannyasa mantras that one does in Viraja Homa, and he gives up these things and he does Homa to Agni and offers everything and says, I am giving up everything. So that then you become a Niragni. This person, a Karma Yogi, is a Sagni. He is somebody who deals with a lot of activities throughout the day, but still he enjoys a certain amount of Chitta Prasada. The pivotal point that Krishna wants to bring up is that, hey, if you are a Karma Yogi, you enjoy Chitta Prasada all through your day and you can do a lot of activities as well. So that is the state of mind that you can enjoy. And he's going to give you the prescription as to how to go about it. Akriyaha is also related to that, because there from Sandhyopasana there is so much of Upasana that is given, but for a sannyasi there is no Upasana. He is given up all of this. So what the point that Bhagavan brings is that it is a yogi or a sannyasi is not by the lifestyle that he is defined, but rather by the inner maturity of the person. So anybody who acts without longing for result is a sannyasi or a yogi. So I think we have seen enough of this. So again the verses, anashrita karma palang karyang karma karoti yaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyah. Oh my gosh, what did I do? Hang on. Srikanto Mathulo Yasya Janani Sarvamangala Janakashankaro Devaha Tambande Kunjarananam. Sorry, give me one. Sorry, give me 1 second. I think I'm playing something in the background. Give me 1 second, please. Sorry about that. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think I played something in the background without taking note of what is going on, and the player didn't open. So we saw how a karma yogi becomes a sannyasi. So Bhagavan wants to further explain this idea. Na punaha mukhyam sannyasitvam yogitvam cha abhipretam yit yetam artham darishitum aha. So what is the guna or the characteristic that one needs to have so that you can get to the state of a sannyasi or a yogi? Now Bhagavan wants to explain further. So let's read. Can someone unmute and read with me?
I can read that.
Thank you. Yam sanyasamiti prahuhu
Yam sanyasamiti prahu
yogam tam vidhi pandava
yogam tam vidhi pandava
nahyasanyasta sankalpo
nahyasya sankalpo
yogi bhavati kaschana
yogi bhavati kachana
yam sanyasamiti prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava nahyasanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. Hey Pandava, hey son of Pandu, sorry, I got rid of the other one, but okay. Yam sanyasam iti praahuhu, that which is said or declared as sannyasa, tam yogam vidhi, know that as yoga. Yam sanyasam tam yogam, know that sannyasa and yoga are synonymous. Yena sanyastaha sankalpaha nasti. Bhagavan said asanyasta sankalpaha. Whoever has not given up the desire towards the fruit of his action, yogi kaschana na bhavati, does not become a sannyasi or a yogi. So what he said earlier, he gives it in a negative way. He says, know that as yogi, which is called as sannyasi, know that as yogi, which is called sannyasa, for none becomes a yogi without renouncing sankalpa. So what his main point is that renouncing sankalpa is the lakshana of sannyasa or yoga. Yogasya lakshanam sannyasasya lakshanam asanyasta sankalpameva. Yena sanyastaha sankalpaha saha asanyasta sankalpaha tadeva sannyasasya lakshanam. So you would have got the point here. Bhagavan just re-emphasizes what he already said, but he says much more explicitly that you have to give up the sankalpa or the longing for fruits. Yam. Sir, let us look at the bhashyam. Yam sarva karma tat phala parityaga lakshanam paramartha sannyasam iti prahuhu. What is called as sannyasa? Know that sannyasa is one that is renouncing everything. Yogam karmanushtana lakshanam tam paramartha sannyasam vidhi janihi he Pandava. So yoga is a lakshana defined in Shruti and Smriti, renouncing both karma and karma phala. Karma yogasya pravritti lakshanasya tad viparitena nivritti lakshanena paramartha sannyasena kidrisham samanya mangikritya tad bhava uchyate ityapekshayam idamuchyate asti hi paramartha sannyasena sadrishyam kartridvarakam karma yogasya. So a karma yogi is someone who has not renounced action but the wanting or longing for the fruits. So he is already there. He is about to be a sannyasi. In the sense, he is already there as a sannyasi in that gauna fashion. which we already saw. Ayamapi karma yogi karma kurvana eva phala vishayam sankalpam sanyasyati ityetamartam darshayishyan aha nahi yasmat asanyasta sankalpaha asanyastah aparityaktaha phalavishayah sankalpah abhisandhi yena saha asanyasta sankalpah kaschana kaschidapi karmi yogi samadhanavan bhavati na sambhavati ityartah palasankalpasya chitta vikshepe hetutvat. So we saw most of these ideas. So the central idea is that once you start giving up the longing for fruits of the action, you automatically enjoy a certain chitta prasada, which is the opposite of chitta vikshepa, and that because of that you are called as a sannyasi. So you become a samadhanavan. So here yam sannyasam prahuhu tam yogam vidhi pandava. So what Krishna's idea is that, hey, the intention of the yoga shastra is to give you this chitta prasada. So that is the same intention of sannyasa too. That is the emphasis that Bhagavan brings. And more than Shankaracharya, because Shankara Bhashyam is very brief, Madhusudana Saraswati takes up this verse in detail and goes into explaining all the Yoga Sutras, starting from Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodhaha, saying how the idea that is put forward in the Yoga Sutra as to how you do Chitta Vritti Nirodha, there all vrittis are not stopped, rather Sattvika vrittis are entertained, and how Karma Yoga leads to the same effect as a yogi. So even if you sit under a tree meditating for years together, trying to get to the state of a yogi, that you can very easily get by being in the society in itself and practicing karma yoga. That is the idea that Bhagavan brings. So every unique verse is unique. Bhagavan does not repeat the same idea again and again, but with the same emphasis he brings a new idea here, which is that you do not need to go to a hilltop. You can get into the real hustle bustle and still be a sannyasi. The effect of yoga is attained by a karma yogi. That is, so yam sannyasam praguhu yogam tam vidhi pandava na hyasanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. I'll finish with one small anecdote. You would have known Totapuri is the sannyasa guru of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So Totapuri gives sannyasa to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and then he gives the Mahavakya Upadesha, because in tradition Mahavakya Upadesha is not given without the sannyasa ashrama. So it is not like a mantropadesha, but rather you have to have that pre-qualification of a sannyasa. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa actually took sannyasa. But then Ramakrishna, because his mom was alive at that point of time, he said, like, I would upset my mother so much if I wear orange robes and so on. So can I not change my physical appearance? Can I just be the same priest-like attire, be in that attire? And then he says, and Totapuri, having seen the state of Ramakrishna, he says that it really doesn't matter. You are a Paramahamsa yogi, so you have no sankalpa. And he sees that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa does not act out of any sankalpa. So, because his actions were not driven out of the urge to attain anything, there was no sankalpa. He said, you don't need to change your physical characteristic. You be in your household. In fact, live with your wife. No problem. You are still a sannyasi. So, yam sannyasam prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava na hyasanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. So the point that Bhagavan brings from the same idea is that you gain by practicing yoga, which is yama niyama asana pranayama adin. That chittavritti nirodha that is possible through the yoga marga can be easily attained by doing your own duty, by just giving up the repeated attachment towards the result. So that is the message of Krishna in these two. There are 10 verses that go into explaining Karma Yoga again, because Shankaracharya is going to emphasize this, saying that, hey, this is the Bahiranga sadhana. This is the external sadhana that is needed. And then Bhagavan is going to transition, and from the 11th verse he is going to say how to sit in meditation. Shuchau deshe pratishtapya stiram asanam atmanaha natyuchitam natineecham shailajana kushotram. How to put proper asana, how to sit, what is the sitting posture, and so on. He even explains what are all the dietary restrictions you need to follow, what are all the daily activities that you need to follow, and so on, and how this chitta prasada becomes sustained in your mind, how you can sustain the chitta prasada over time. That is the content matter of today's the 6th adhyaya and today's Bhagavad Gita. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Tatsat Krishnarpanamastu.